Your Honor, this is a heartbreaking case. A devoted son watching his beloved mother succumb to dementia. Kevin Thompson isn't here to steal or manipulate. He's here because he loves his mother and cannot stand by while she destroys herself. I wanted to scream. Emma gripped my hand so hard my fingers went numb. Margaret Thompson is 76 years old, Chen continued. She recently lost her husband of 53 years. The grief has been overwhelming. Understandably so. But grief combined with cognitive decline is a dangerous combination. Mrs. Thompson has been forgetting things, collapsing in public, making wild accusations against her son, claiming he's trying to steal property, forge documents, conspire against her. These are classic symptoms of paranoid dementia. Objection. Robert was on his feet. Counsel is testifying rather than arguing. Medical diagnoses require expert testimony. Sustained. Mr. Chen, stick to facts, not conclusions. Of course, Your Honor. Chen didn't look chastised. The facts are these. Mrs. Thompson has removed her only son from her will, given her $5 million estate to a 21-year-old granddaughter with no business experience, accused multiple professionals of fraud based on no evidence, cut off all family contact, and is being isolated by individuals who have financial interest in controlling her assets. He gestured toward Robert. Mr. Martinez stands to make substantial legal fees from this case. The granddaughter, Emma Thompson, stands to inherit millions. They have every reason to encourage Mrs. Thompson's paranoia, to convince her that her loving son is the enemy. Your Honor, Chen said, his voice dripping false compassion, all Kevin Thompson wants is to protect his mother, to ensure she receives proper care, to prevent financial exploitation by opportunistic individuals. He's asking this court to grant temporary conservatorship so his mother can be professionally evaluated in a controlled environment and her assets can be secured until her competency is definitively established. He sat down, looking satisfied. My stomach roiled. It sounded so reasonable, so caring. If you didn't know the truth, you'd think Kevin was a hero. Mr. Martinez, Judge Morrison said, your opening. Robert stood slowly, deliberately, walked to the center of the courtroom and looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, Marcus Chen just told you a story about a devoted son. I'm going to tell you the truth about a calculated predator. Kevin's face flushed red. His lawyer started to object, but Judge Morrison held up her hand. I'll allow it. Continue, Mr. Martinez. Kevin Thompson didn't suddenly become concerned about his mother after his father's death. He's been planning to steal her assets for 3 years. We have emails proving it, text messages documenting it, witness testimony confirming it, and a letter from Margaret's late husband written before he died warning her about Kevin's conspiracy. Robert pulled out a folder thick with papers. Your Honor, the evidence will show that Kevin Thompson is a serial predator who targets elderly clients. He's currently under criminal investigation by the district attorney for elder abuse involving 9 separate families. He's stolen or attempted to steal over $3 million from vulnerable seniors. Gasps from the gallery. Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose. His own wife, Ashley Thompson, will testify that Kevin planned to falsely declare his mother incompetent, that he kept a document on his computer logging evidence of her decline evidence he invented, that he consulted with a developer about selling her property months before his father even died. Robert's voice grew stronger. Margaret Thompson is not demented. She's traumatized. There's a profound difference. She's been psychologically abused by her son for years, financially exploited, emotionally manipulated. Now she's being gaslit, told that her reasonable reactions to abuse are symptoms of mental illness. He turned, looked directly at Kevin. Kevin Thompson is not a devoted son. He's a con artist who chose his own mother as his victim, and this court has the evidence to prove it. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Judge Morrison steepled her fingers, studying both lawyers. Mr. Martinez, these are serious allegations. I assume you have substantial evidence? We do, Your Honor. Overwhelming evidence, and we're prepared to present it all. Very well. We'll begin with... Your Honor. Marcus Chen jumped up. Before we proceed, I need to note for the record that my client has received death threats, anonymous messages, online harassment, public vilification based on manipulated videos posted by the granddaughter. Kevin Thompson's life has been destroyed by this coordinated campaign Save it for your testimony, Mr. Chen. Judge Morrison cut him off. This is a conservatorship hearing, not a defamation trial. We're here to determine Margaret Thompson's competency and whether she needs protection. Everything else is noise. She looked at me directly for the first time. Her gaze was penetrating, assessing. I sat up straighter despite my trembling hands, met her eyes, refused to look away. Mrs. Thompson, do you understand why you're here today? Yes, Your Honor. My voice came out stronger than I felt. My son is trying to have me declared incompetent so he can steal everything my husband and I built. That's an allegation, not a fact. Do you understand the difference? Yes, Your Honor. The facts are in the evidence Mr. Martinez will present. A flicker of something crossed her face. Approval? Sympathy? I couldn't tell. Very well. We'll hear expert testimony first. Mr. Martinez, call your first witness. The respondent calls Dr. Lisa Huang, board-certified psychiatrist. Dr. Huang took the stand, calm and professional in her navy suit. She'd evaluated me 3 times in the past month. Knew my trauma, my stress responses, my cognitive function. Dr. Huang, Robert began, in your professional opinion, does Margaret Thompson suffer from dementia? No. Absolutely not. Can you explain? I've conducted extensive cognitive testing, mini-mental state examination, Montreal cognitive assessment, detailed neuropsychological battery, Mrs. Thompson scores in the normal range for her age on all measures. Her memory is intact, her reasoning is sound, her judgment is appropriate. Then why has she been forgetting things? Collapsing? Acute stress disorder. Mrs. Thompson has been subjected to sustained psychological abuse by her son. The body keeps score of trauma. Her physical symptoms, weight loss, elevated blood pressure, panic attacks are not dementia. They're survival responses to ongoing threat. Marcus Chen stood for cross-examination, his smile predatory. Dr. Huang, you were hired by the respondent's attorney, correct? I was retained to conduct an independent evaluation, yes. And you're being paid for your testimony today? I'm being compensated for my time, as expert witnesses are. So you have a financial incentive to declare Mrs. Thompson competent? Dr. Huang's expression didn't change. I have a professional obligation to tell the truth regardless of who pays me. Mrs. Thompson is competent. That's my medical opinion based on objective testing. But she's lost 8 pounds, collapsed twice, forgotten her granddaughter's name. Those sound like cognitive impairment to me. Then respectfully, Mr. Chen, you need medical education. Trauma and dementia present very differently. Mrs. Thompson's symptoms are consistent with PTSD, not neurodegeneration. Isn't it possible she has both? Dementia complicated by stress? No. The cognitive testing would show decline if dementia were present. It doesn't. Chen tried for 20 more minutes, but Dr. Huang didn't budge. Her testimony was airtight. Next came the neurologist who'd done MRI scans. No evidence of dementia-related brain changes. Normal age-appropriate atrophy, nothing more. Then Daniel's oncologist, who'd worked with me during his final months. Mrs. Thompson was my liaison for Daniel Thompson's care. She understood complex medical information, made sound decisions, advocated effectively. If she had cognitive impairment, I would have seen it. I didn't. Witness after witness, each one demolishing Kevin's narrative. By lunch recess, I was exhausted but hopeful. The evidence was working. The judge was listening. But I knew the hardest part was coming. This afternoon, Kevin would testify, and I would have to sit 10 feet away from my son while he lied about me to a judge. The bailiff called us back at 1:30. The court calls Kevin Thompson. My son stood, buttoned his suit jacket, and walked to the witness stand. And the real battle began. Kevin placed his hand on the Bible, his voice steady as he swore to tell the truth. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't destroying me. Mr. Thompson, Marcus Chen began, please tell the court about your mother. Kevin's face transformed. Gone was the cold rage I'd seen in the hallway. Now he was all wounded devotion, eyes glistening with unshed tears. My mother was the strongest woman I've ever known, he said, his voice catching. She and my father built Rose Hill Bakery from nothing, worked 18-hour days, sacrificed everything for me, for their dream. Growing up, I watched her wake up at 4 a.m. every single morning, never complaining, always smiling. She was my hero. Past tense. Was. Like I was already gone. My chest tightened. Emma's hand found mine under the table. "When did you first notice changes in your mother?" Chen asked. "About 2 years ago. Little things at first. She'd forget conversations we'd had, repeat the same story twice in one visit, get confused about dates." Kevin shook his head sadly. "I told myself it was just aging. Everyone forgets things sometimes, right?" "When did it become concerning?" "When Dad got sick. Last year during his treatment, Mom would mix up his medications, call me at 2 a.m., panicking because she couldn't remember if she'd given him his pills. The hospice nurses had to take over medication management because they didn't trust her to do it safely." "That's a lie!" The words burst out of me before I could stop them. Judge Morrison's gavel cracked like thunder. "Mrs. Thompson, you'll have your turn to testify. Remain silent or I'll have you removed from the courtroom." Robert squeezed my shoulder, a silent plea to stay calm. But how could I? Kevin was rewriting history, painting me as incompetent while Daniel died, when I'd been the one coordinating every doctor's appointment, every medication change, every moment of his care. "I'm sorry, Your Honor," Kevin said, his voice thick with false sympathy. "This is hard for Mom. The dementia makes her aggressive sometimes, confrontational. She doesn't understand that I'm trying to help her." I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. "Stay silent. Let Robert destroy him. Stay silent." "After your father passed," Chen continued, "what happened?" Kevin's performance was masterful. Mom fell apart. Understandably, they'd been married 53 years, but the grief seemed to accelerate her decline. She started making wild accusations, saying I was stealing from her, that I'd planned Dad's death, completely paranoid delusions. "Did you try to help her?" "Constantly. I visited several times a week, brought groceries, offered to help manage her finances since she was getting confused about bills, but she'd gotten hostile. Emma, my daughter, she'd been influenced by Mom's paranoia. They started pushing me away, refusing my help." "What about the will change?" That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. Kevin leaned forward, addressing Judge Morrison directly. "Your Honor, my mother gave me power of attorney years ago. She trusted me to handle her affairs if anything happened. Then suddenly 3 weeks after Dad died, she revokes everything, removes me from the will entirely, gives a $5 million estate to a 21-year-old college student with no financial experience." "Did you try to discuss this with her?" "I tried. She accused me of trying to control her. Said I wanted to lock her up." "Your Honor, these are textbook dementia symptoms: paranoia, impulsive decisions, hostility toward family members trying to help." I watched Judge Morrison's face. She was listening, taking notes. Did she believe him? Could she see through the lies? "Mr. Thompson," Chen said gently, "I know this is difficult, but we need to address the allegations against you. The emails, the text messages. How do you explain those?" Kevin sighed, rubbed his face like a man exhausted by false accusations. "Your Honor, I'm a real estate attorney. Part of my job is evaluating property for clients. Yes, I looked into Rosehill Bakery's value. Not to steal it, to protect it. Mom was talking about selling to the first developer who made an offer. I was researching fair market value to make sure she didn't get cheated. And the text messages about cognitive decline? I was documenting concerning behaviors to show doctors. That's what you're supposed to do when you suspect dementia, keep records, so medical professionals can make informed diagnoses. Those messages were taken out of context and weaponized against me. My God, he'd prepared for everything. Had an explanation for every piece of evidence, reasonable-sounding lies for every truth. "What about the other families?" Chen asked. "The allegations that you've defrauded multiple elderly clients?" "Bitter former clients making false accusations," Kevin said firmly. "I'm a probate attorney. I handle contested estates. Sometimes family members don't like the outcomes. They blame the lawyer. The state bar investigated every single complaint and found no wrongdoing." "That's because you paid them off," Emma's voice rang out. "You settled to make them go away." Judge Morrison's gavel crashed again. "Young lady, one more outburst and you're removed. Final warning." Emma's face was red, tears streaming, but she nodded and sat back. Kevin looked at his daughter with what could have passed for heartbreak. "Emma, sweetheart, I know Grandma's convinced you I'm a villain, but I'm your father. I love you. I love Grandma. Everything I've done has been to protect our family. Mr. Thompson, Chen concluded, what do you want from this court? Just to keep my mother safe, Kevin said, his voice breaking. Temporary conservatorship while she's properly evaluated by neutral doctors. Protection of her assets until we know she's capable of managing them, and, he paused, wiping his eyes. And maybe, someday, my mother will forgive me for loving her enough to do the hard thing. He stepped down from the witness stand, and I wanted to vomit. He'd been so convincing, so genuinely hurt. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed him myself. Mr. Martinez, Judge Morrison said. Cross-examination? Robert stood, and I saw something in his expression that made my heart leap. He wasn't worried. He was ready. Mr. Thompson, you testified that you were researching the bakery's value to protect your mother from being cheated. Is that correct? Yes. When did you start this research? About 6 months ago, maybe? Really? Robert pulled out a document. Because this email from Morrison Development Group is dated March 15, 2023. That's 2.5 years ago. You wrote, and I quote, I need preliminary valuations for a property I'll inherit within 12 to 18 months. Rose Hill Bakery, Alberta, and 28th. Kevin's face paled. That was just preliminary. You told developers you'd inherit the property within 12 to 18 months. Mr. Thompson, your father was healthy in March 2023. He wasn't diagnosed with cancer until November of that year. How did you know he'd die within 18 months? Silence. Kevin's mouth opened and closed. Unless, Robert continued, you weren't waiting for inheritance. You were planning to take the property another way. Objection. Chen jumped up. Speculation. Sustained. Rephrase, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Thompson, this email proves you were planning to acquire Rose Hill Bakery 2.5 years ago, not 6 months ago. You lied under oath just now, didn't you? I misremembered the timeline. Did you also misremember creating a document on your computer titled Mom, Incompetency, Evidence, Log, Doc? Kevin froze. I don't know what you're talking about. Really? Robert approached the bench with a laptop. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit 27. A document recovered from Kevin Thompson's personal computer at Rose Hill Bakery. The metadata shows it was created January 8, 2024, and last modified September 2, 2024, 10 days before Daniel Thompson died. He projected the document on the courtroom screen. My fake incompetency log. Every twisted observation Kevin had recorded to manufacture dementia. Mr. Thompson, did you write this document? Yes, but did you write mixed up story about Daniel's medication July 2024? Note. She was right about the medication. I was wrong, but can frame this as her being confused. Kevin's face flushed crimson. You were documenting how to lie about your mother's behavior to make her seem incompetent. Yes or no? I was concerned about her mental state. Yes or no, Mr. Thompson? It's more complicated than... Your Honor, please instruct the witness to answer the question. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Mr. Thompson, answer yes or no. Did you create a document planning how to falsely portray your mother as incompetent? The courtroom held its breath. Kevin looked at his lawyer, at the judge, at me. I saw the moment he realized there was no good answer. Yes, he whispered. But I thought she actually was declining. You wrote, she was right about the medication. I was wrong, but can frame this as her being confused. That's not documenting actual decline. That's premeditated fraud. Robert pulled out another document. Let's talk about Dr. Richardson, the physician who wrote a letter supporting your conservatorship petition. How much did you pay him? Dr. Richardson is a respected... How much? $25,000? Kevin snapped. For a thorough evaluation. An evaluation of a patient he never met? Dr. Richardson isn't a psychiatrist or neurologist. He's a concierge doctor who treats rich people's hangovers. You paid him $25,000 to sign a letter saying your mother is incompetent based entirely on your claims, correct? He trusted my professional judgment. Your professional judgment as a lawyer, not a doctor. Mr. Thompson, you committed fraud to obtain that letter, didn't you? No. You texted your wife on August 12th, 2025. Dr. Richardson will sign evaluation for $25,000. We have the text messages, the payments, the proof. Kevin was sweating now, his composed facade cracking. You're twisting everything. Let's talk about your father's funeral. What? September 22nd, 2025. Your father's funeral. Where were you? I had a client meeting. At Kennard Restaurant. With your wife? Drinking champagne. While your mother buried your father alone. Correct? That meeting was important. $600,000, you said. Let's examine that. Robert pulled out bank records. Your bank statements show no $600,000 deposit in September, October, or November. No wire transfer, no check. Where's this money from the important deal you chose over your father's funeral? Silence. The deal didn't exist, did it? You lied about the meeting. You just didn't want to attend your father's funeral. I couldn't face it. Dad was dead, and Kevin stopped, realizing what he'd admitted. You couldn't face it. But you could face champagne at Portland's most expensive restaurant. You could face posting on Instagram about self-care. You could face giving your mother's empty chair at the funeral, but you couldn't face actually showing up. You don't understand. I understand that you valued champagne over your father's memory. I understand that while your mother stood alone at a grave, you were planning to steal her bakery. I understand that every word you've spoken today is a calculated lie designed to steal $5 million from a woman you're supposed to love. That's not true. Kevin was standing now, shouting, "She's my mother. That's my inheritance. I deserve it after everything He stopped. The courtroom went deadly silent. After everything you what, Mr. Thompson? Robert's voice was soft, dangerous. After everything you put up with? After everything you sacrificed? Please, finish that sentence. Kevin's lawyer was frantically signaling him to stop talking. But rage had taken over. After everything I endured growing up in that bakery, waking up to flour dust and oven heat, smelling like bread every day at school, being the poor kid whose parents worked like immigrants. Do you know what that's like? Watching other kids' parents in suits and offices while mine wore aprons and had flour under their fingernails? My heart shattered. Emma gasped. The gallery erupted in whispers. I was embarrassed by them, Kevin shouted, years of resentment pouring out. I worked my ass off to become a lawyer, to escape that life, and they still expected me to take over the bakery someday. Like I wanted to spend my life making bread for strangers. That bakery isn't a legacy, it's a prison. And yes, I plan to sell it. Because I earned the right to cash out of the life they forced on me. Judge Morrison's gavel slammed repeatedly. Mr. Thompson, sit down. But Kevin wasn't done. He turned to me, his face contorted with decades of hidden contempt. You want to know the truth, Mother? I stopped loving that bakery when I was 12. I stopped wanting your life when I was 16. And I stopped caring about you and Dad when I realized all you'd ever be was small-time bakers who'd never amount to anything more. The silence that followed was absolute. Kevin seemed to realize what he'd done. The mask was gone. The performance over. The real Kevin Thompson, bitter, greedy, contemptuous, had been revealed to everyone. Robert spoke quietly. No further questions, Your Honor. Kevin stumbled back to his seat, his lawyer's face pale with horror. He'd destroyed his own case with his outburst. But I barely noticed. Because my son, my baby boy, had just told a courtroom full of people that he'd been ashamed of us, that he'd never loved us, that 45 years of waking at 4 a.m. to build a life for him had meant nothing. The pain was physical, my chest compressed. I couldn't breathe. Emma was talking to me, Dr. Huang was there, but I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was Kevin's voice. Never amount to anything more. Mrs. Thompson. Judge Morrison's voice cut through the fog. Do you need a recess? I looked up at her. This woman who would decide my fate. And I found my voice. No, Your Honor, I said clearly. I've heard everything I needed to hear. I'm ready to continue. Because Kevin had done something I'd been too weak to do. He'd killed the fantasy, the dream of the son who loved me, the hope of reconciliation. He'd set me free. And tomorrow, when it was my turn to testify, I would make sure he regretted it. Judge Morrison called a 15-minute recess after Kevin's meltdown. I needed 15 hours. In the hallway outside courtroom 507, I collapsed onto a bench, my body finally giving out. The adrenaline that had kept me upright during Kevin's tirade evaporated, leaving nothing but hollow exhaustion. "Grandma, drink this." Emma pressed a bottle of water into my shaking hands. "And eat these. Crackers from the vending machine. Dr. Huang says your blood sugar dropped." I couldn't taste the crackers, couldn't feel the water going down. All I could feel was the echo of Kevin's words. Never amount to anything more. 45 years, 18,000 mornings, 650,000 cinnamon rolls, 2 million loaves of bread, 3 generations of Portland families fed by our hands. And my son thought we'd never amounted to anything. "Margaret." Father O'Brien knelt in front of me, his weathered hands covering mine. Kevin revealed his true heart in there. The judge saw it. Everyone saw it. "He's been ashamed of us for 30 years, I whispered. 30 years, and I never knew. How did I not know, Father? Because you loved him. Love is blind to cruelty when it comes from our children. His voice was gentle but firm. But Margaret, his shame says everything about him, and nothing about you. You and Daniel built something beautiful, something honest. Kevin chose bitterness over gratitude. That's his sin, not yours." Tom Brennan sat on my other side, his baker's hands scarred from years of oven burns, just like mine gripping a statement he'd prepared to read in court. "Mrs. T, I worked for you and Mr. Daniel for 15 years. You know what you amounted to? You gave me a job when nobody else would hire a guy with a criminal record. You taught me a trade. You treated me like family. Because of you, I have dignity. That's what you amounted to." Maria Rodriguez joined us, her eyes red from crying. "You amounted to the woman who let me bring my babies to work when I couldn't afford childcare, who taught my daughter English by reading to her during slow afternoons, who paid for my son's quinceañera when my husband lost his job. You amounted to everything Kevin will never understand. You amounted to love." One by one, my army of supporters surrounded me. Mrs. Chen, Sarah, Rebecca Morrison, and the other families Kevin had victimized, 23 people forming a human wall between me and the courtroom where my son sat plotting. "He didn't break you," Emma said fiercely, kneeling beside Father O'Brien. "He broke himself. Everyone in that courtroom watched him destroy his own case. Grandma, we're winning. Can't you feel it?" I couldn't. All I felt was grief. The final, terrible grief of burying a child who was still alive. Because the Kevin I'd loved, the boy with flour on his nose, laughing in Daniel's arms, was dead, had been dead for years. I'd just been too desperate to see it. All parties returned to courtroom 507. The bailiff's voice echoed down the hallway. Robert helped me stand. "Margaret." Kevin's outburst changed everything. The judge saw a man consumed by greed and resentment. Now we need to show her a woman consumed by nothing but survival. "Can you do that?" I nodded. What choice did I have? Back in the courtroom, Judge Morrison's expression was granite. "Mr. Chen, call your next witness." Marcus Chen stood slowly. He looked like a man at a funeral his own. "Your Honor, given my client's emotional state, I'd like to request." "Denied. Call your next witness or rest your case." We rest, Your Honor." Kevin had been his star witness, his only real witness. The outburst had destroyed everything else Chen might have planned. "Mr. Martinez?" Robert stood, confident and calm. The respondent calls Ashley Chen Thompson. The courtroom stirred. Kevin's head whipped around, his face draining of color. "What? No, Ashley, you don't have to." "Mr. Thompson, sit down and be quiet," Judge Morrison snapped. Ashley walked down the aisle in a simple gray dress, no makeup, hair pulled back. She looked 10 years older than the woman I'd seen drinking champagne at Kennard 4 weeks ago. Divorce and conscience had aged her fast. She didn't look at Kevin as she took the stand. Didn't look at me either. Kept her eyes fixed on Robert as she was sworn in. If this part really struck a chord with you, tap that like button to let me know you're with me. Do you see yourself in the character's journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your take. "Mrs. Thompson," Robert began, "you filed for divorce from Kevin Thompson 2 weeks ago. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Why?" Ashley's hands twisted in her lap. "Because I realized I'd married a monster." Kevin shot to his feet. "You bitch." The gavel crashed. Mr. Thompson, one more word and you'll be removed from this courtroom. Sit down. Kevin sat, but his face was murderous. Mrs. Thompson, Robert continued, how long have you been married to Kevin? 18 years. We married in 2007. Did Kevin discuss his parents with you during your marriage? All the time. Ashley's voice was quiet but steady. He complained about them constantly, said they were small-minded, that they'd wasted their potential. He was obsessed with the idea that they had valuable property and weren't maximizing it. What do you mean by maximizing? Selling Rose Hill Bakery. Kevin used to say his parents were sitting on a gold mine and too stupid to cash in. He'd drive past the bakery with real estate apps open, calculating what the land was worth. This was years before Daniel got sick. My chest ached. Years. He'd been planning this for years. When did the planning become concrete? March of 2023. Kevin came home excited, almost manic. He said he'd contacted Morrison Development Group. They told him Alberta Arts District was gentrifying fast, and corner properties like Rose Hill could sell for over $5 million. He started researching conservatorship law that night. Conservatorship? 2 years before his father's death? He said it was preparation, that Margaret was getting older, would eventually need help, and we should be ready. But, Your Honor, Ashley finally looked at Judge Morrison. I heard him on the phone with a lawyer friend asking how hard it was to prove incompetency. This was when Margaret was completely healthy. He wasn't preparing to help her, he was preparing to steal from her. Objection. Marcus Chen was on his feet. This is hearsay. She's testifying about statements made by the party opponent, Robert countered. It's an exception to hearsay rules. Overruled. Continue, Mrs. Thompson. Ashley took a shaky breath. When Daniel was diagnosed with cancer in November 2023, Kevin saw it as an opportunity. He said, and I'll never forget this. Dad's got 6 months, maybe a year. Perfect timing. Mom will be too grief-stricken to think clearly. We can move fast. I pressed my hand to my mouth, stifling a sob. Emma's arm went around my shoulders. Did you object to this plan? Robert asked. No. Shame flooded Ashley's face. I'm not proud of it, but no. I was drowning in credit card debt, most of it from my spending. I admit that. Kevin promised the bakery sale would solve everything, pay off our $750,000 in debt and leave us millions to retire on. I convinced myself Margaret didn't really need that much money at her age anyway. When did you realize you were wrong? At Daniel's funeral. Or, rather, when we didn't go to Daniel's funeral. Ashley's voice cracked. Kevin had me convinced it was a strategic absence, that it would start building the narrative of Margaret being difficult, unreasonable, someone who'd driven us away. But the morning of the funeral, I looked at Instagram and saw her dress that navy blue one Daniel loved, and I realized she's burying her husband alone because we chose strategy over humanity. Tears streamed down her face. I wanted to go. I begged Kevin to change his mind. He said, we already committed to the absence narrative. If we go now, we look indecisive. So we went to Kennard instead. And I posted about self-care because Kevin said it would reinforce that Margaret's grief is exhausting us, pushing us to set boundaries. Every Instagram post was calculated, Your Honor. Every champagne photo was strategy. The courtroom was silent, except for Ashley's quiet crying. Did Kevin create a document planning how to prove Margaret incompetent? Yes. He called it his evidence log. He'd write down normal things Margaret did, forgetting a story she'd already told, being emotional at dinner, and add notes about how to frame them as dementia symptoms. He showed it to me like he was proud of it. Like it was clever. What did you think? I thought it was thorough. God help me, I thought my husband was being smart. Ashley finally looked at me, her face destroyed. Margaret, I'm so sorry. I knew what Kevin was doing. I helped him. I lied to Emma about the funeral. I posted those horrible Instagram photos. I convinced myself you wouldn't really suffer in a care facility, that it would be safer for you anyway. She turned back to Judge Morrison. I was wrong about everything. Kevin doesn't love his mother. He doesn't love me. He doesn't love anyone but money. And I enabled him for 18 years because I was too selfish and too greedy to see what I was married to. One final question, Robert said. Are there other families Kevin defrauded? Yes. He bragged about them. The Chens in Beaverton, he called them easy marks because they didn't speak English well. Rebecca Morrison's mother, he laughed about how he'd milked her estate for $80,000. There were others, at least 6 I know about. He had a whole system. Target elderly clients, gain their trust, manipulate their estates, settle if anyone complained. He called it retirement, planning his retirement, not theirs. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. No further questions. Marcus Chen approached for cross-examination, but his heart wasn't in it. Mrs. Thompson, you're testifying against your husband because you're angry about the divorce, aren't you? No. I'm testifying because I helped him victimize innocent people, and I can't live with that anymore. You expect this court to believe you suddenly grew a conscience? I don't expect anything except to tell the truth. For once in my marriage. Ashley's voice was firm. Kevin is guilty. I know it because I was his accomplice. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends. Chen had no response to that. He sat down. Ashley stepped down from the witness stand, walked past Kevin without a glance, and left the courtroom. I'd probably never see her again. She'd destroyed herself to save me. It was the most honest thing she'd ever done. Judge Morrison looked at the clock. 3:45 p.m. We'll recess until Monday morning at 9 a.m., Mr. Martinez, be prepared with your remaining witnesses. Your Honor, the respondent is prepared to testify Monday. Very well. Mrs. Thompson, you'll take the stand first thing Monday morning. Judge Morrison looked directly at me. This has been a long day. Go home, rest. Monday will be equally difficult. As we filed out of the courtroom, I felt Kevin's eyes burning into my back. I turned. He sat alone at his table, his lawyer packing up briefcases, his witnesses gone, alone with the ruins of his lies. Mom. His voice was small, broken, not the rage from earlier, not the calculated performance, just empty. Mom, please. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. My voice was steady, clear. You meant every word. You've been ashamed of us for 30 years, and I've been blind for 30 years. But I see you now, Kevin. Finally, I see exactly who you are. I'm your son. No. The word came out with absolute certainty. My son died years ago. You're just the man wearing his face. And Monday, when I testify, I'm going to make sure everyone else sees what I see. I turned and walked away, Emma's hand in mine, my army of supporters surrounding me. Behind us, Kevin sat alone in the empty courtroom. And for the first time since Daniel died, I felt something other than grief. I felt power. Monday morning, I would take the stand. And I would end this. Saturday morning, I woke to Emma screaming. I bolted upright in bed, or tried to. My body moved like it belonged to someone else, stiff and uncooperative. By the time I stumbled into the hallway, Emma was standing at the living room window, her phone pressed to the glass, filming. Grandma, don't come down here. Call the police. Now. I came down anyway. Someone had spray painted the front of my house, Daniel's Victorian house, that he'd painted yellow because I said it reminded me of sunshine. The words were 6 feet tall, dripping red across the siding. Liar. Thief. You'll pay for this. My legs gave out. I sat hard on the stairs, unable to process what I was seeing. The paint was still wet, glistening in the November morning light. Whoever did this had been here recently. Maybe was still watching. I already called 911, Emma said, her voice shaking but controlled. They're sending officers. I got video of the house from every angle, time-stamped. This is evidence, Grandma. This helps us. Helps us. My home, the home where I'd raised Kevin, where Daniel had died, where every room held 53 years of memories, was vandalized with death threats, and Emma was thinking about evidence. Because that's what Kevin had turned us into. People who documented everything, trusted nothing, lived in constant fear of the next attack. The police arrived within 10 minutes. Officers Martinez and Chen, the same ones from the bakery locksmith incident. They photographed everything, took statements, checked security cameras from neighbors' houses. Mrs. Thompson, Officer Martinez said gently, do you have somewhere else you can stay? Until we figure out who did this? It was Kevin, Emma said immediately. My father did this. Miss, we can't make that accusation without evidence. He's been threatening Grandma. We have voicemails, text messages, which we'll investigate. But this could also be a random act. This neighborhood's had some vandalism issues. You'll pay for this isn't random, Emma snapped. That's personal. That's my father, angry because his wife testified against him. Officer Chen took notes, his expression neutral. We'll check Mr. Thompson's whereabouts last night. If we can place him near here, we'll press charges. But ma'am, he looked at me, you should consider that restraining order allows you to request police escort to and from court. Maybe stay somewhere else until the hearing concludes. No, my voice came out stronger than I felt. This is my house. Kevin's already taken my peace, my health, my son. He's not taking my home. Grandma. Emma, no, we're staying. By noon, volunteers from Rose Hill neighborhood had arrived with paint supplies. Tom Brennan and 3 other former bakery customers covered the graffiti with primer, working in determined silence. Mrs. Chen organized lunch sandwiches and coffee for everyone. Father O'Brien came to bless the house, sprinkling holy water and praying for protection. You're not alone in this, he said, gripping my hands. Evil wants you to feel isolated. But look around, Margaret. You're surrounded by love. I looked. 23 people on my lawn, painting my house, refusing to let Kevin's hatred win. Tears streamed down my face, but for once they weren't tears of despair. Robert arrived at 2 p.m. with his laptop and serious expression. Margaret, I need to prep you for Monday. Your testimony is everything. If we do this right, you win. If Kevin's lawyer rattles you, makes you seem confused or emotional, I am emotional. My son spray-painted death threats on my house. We can't prove that yet. And if you mention it in court without proof, Kevin's lawyer will accuse you of paranoid delusions. Robert sat beside me at the kitchen table. Margaret, I know this is unfair. I know you're the victim. But the legal system requires victims to perform competency, to be calm, rational, unshakable. Can you do that? I thought about Monday, taking the stand, Kevin's lawyer asking brutal questions, Kevin watching, waiting for me to break. I don't know, I whispered. Robert, I'm so tired. My body's failing. My mind feels like it's wrapped in fog. What if I get confused up there? What if I forget something important? What if I prove Kevin right? You won't. Emma sat on my other side. Because we're going to practice all weekend until you can answer every question in your sleep. For the next 6 hours, Robert and Emma drilled me. Questions about dates, times, financial records, questions designed to confuse, to make me second-guess myself. Mrs. Thompson, you claim you gave Kevin $475,000, but isn't it true you're misremembering, inflating numbers because of confusion? No. I have the receipts, every check, every transfer documented. Receipts can be faked by people manipulating you. The banks have records too, independent verification. But you can't remember your granddaughter's name sometimes. How can you remember financial details? I forgot Emma's name once, during a panic attack. That's trauma response, not memory loss. My long-term memory is intact. So you admit you have panic attacks? Doesn't that suggest mental instability? It suggests I'm being psychologically abused by my son. Over and over. By 8 p.m., I was exhausted but steadier. The answers came automatically. I'd memorized the truth so thoroughly that no lie could shake it. Sunday morning, Dr. Huang came to the house for a final evaluation. Blood pressure, 155/92. Still high, but better. Weight, 118 pounds. I'd gained back 3 pounds from Emma's forced feeding. Cognitive testing, normal across the board. You're going to survive this, Dr. Huang said, packing her medical bag. Your body's holding on. Just a few more days, Margaret, then you can rest. What if I can't make it a few more days? Then we'll get you through a few more hours, then a few more minutes. Whatever it takes. She squeezed my hand. You're stronger than you know. Stronger than Kevin ever expected. Sunday afternoon, Father O'Brien held a prayer service at St. Mary's Catholic Church. 50 people came, my neighborhood, my community, my army. They prayed for justice, for strength, for truth to prevail. Kevin's godparents were there, the elderly couple from Seattle who'd sat on his side of the courtroom Friday. They approached me after the service, their faces heavy with shame. Margaret, the man said, Walter, I remembered his name suddenly. We need to apologize. Kevin told us you'd gone senile, that you needed protection. We believed him because, well, We wanted to believe our godson wasn't capable of what he's accused of. But we watched him Friday, his wife Dorothy added, crying. Watched him explode with that hatred. We've known Kevin since he was baptized. That rage didn't come from nowhere. It's been growing inside him for years, and we missed it. We're so sorry. Will you testify? I asked quietly. Tell the judge what you saw? We already called Mr. Martinez, Walter said. We're on the witness list for Monday. Kevin's going to be furious, but that's not our godson anymore. Maybe he never was. They left, and I felt something shift. Even Kevin's own supporters were abandoning him. The lies were crumbling faster than he could rebuild them. Sunday evening, Emma and I sat in Daniel's study. My study now, I supposed. His ashes sat on the bookshelf in a ceramic urn Emma had made in art class years ago. Clumsy, lopsided, perfect. Grandpa would be proud of you, Emma said softly. The way you've fought, the strength you've shown. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm held together with tape and prayers. That's what strength is, Grandma. Not being unbreakable. Being broken and still standing. I picked up the urn, held it close. Daniel, if you're listening, I need you tomorrow. I need your courage. Your certainty. Your belief that good people doing honest work matters. My voice cracked. Because our son thinks we never amounted to anything, and I need to show a judge that we amounted to everything. Emma wrapped her arms around me, and we cried together in the dim study, holding Daniel's ashes between us. At midnight, I couldn't sleep. Walked through the house touching memories. The kitchen counter where Daniel taught Kevin to knead dough when he was 6. The living room where Kevin took his first steps, tumbling into my arms. The backyard where he'd played as a boy, laughing and innocent and ours. When had I lost him? Was there a moment, one specific moment, where the boy who loved us became the man who despised us? Or was it gradual, so slow I didn't notice until it was too late? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mom, please don't testify tomorrow. We can work this out privately. I'll drop everything if you just talk to me. Give me one more chance. Please. K. My thumb hovered over the reply button. One more chance. How many chances had I given him over 30 years? How many times had I believed this time will be different? I deleted the text without responding. Because Kevin didn't want to work things out. He wanted me silent, compliant, gone. And I was done disappearing to make him comfortable. At 3 a.m., I took a shower and washed my hair. Put on the navy dress Daniel's favorite, freshly dry cleaned. The pearls his mother left me. Sensible shoes I could stand in for hours. Emma found me at 4 a.m., sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and Daniel's old bakery ledger. The one with 45 years of handwritten records, proof of what we'd built. Couldn't sleep? She asked. Didn't try. Emma, I need you to know whatever happens today, you gave me something I'd lost. What's that? The will to fight. When Daniel died, I wanted to give up. Just let Kevin have everything and fade away. But you reminded me that Rose Hill isn't just property. It's proof that love and hard work matter. That small dreams built with big hearts are worth protecting. We're going to win, Grandma. Maybe. But even if we don't, Kevin's already lost. Because everyone saw who he really is. And he'll have to live with that forever. At 7 a.m., Robert arrived. Maria brought breakfast I couldn't eat. Mrs. Chen came to pray with me. Tom handed me a small box. Mr. Daniel gave this to me the week before he died, Tom said, his voice rough. Said to give it to you if Kevin ever got out of line. I didn't understand then. I do now. Inside the box, Daniel's wedding ring, and a note in his shaky handwriting. Maggie, wear this today. I'll be with you. We'll face him together. Love doesn't end at death. It just changes form. D. I slid the ring onto my right thumb, the only finger it fit. Felt Daniel's presence settle over me like armor. Okay, I said, standing. My voice was steady. Let's go end this. We drove to the courthouse through Monday morning Portland traffic. The city was waking up, coffee shops opening, joggers on sidewalks, life continuing obliviously around my crisis. At 8:45, we walked into courtroom 507. Kevin was already there, looking worse than Friday. Unshaven, suit wrinkled, eyes hollow. He'd spent the weekend alone with his conscience, if he still had one. Our eyes met across the courtroom. I didn't flinch. Didn't look away. just stared at him with all the power of a woman who'd finally stopped being afraid. He looked away first. At 9 a.m., Judge Morrison entered. All rise. We stood. Mr. Martinez, call your witness. The respondent calls Margaret Elizabeth Thompson. I walk to the witness stand, Daniel's ring warm on my thumb, Emma's love at my back, 45 years of honest life fueling my steps. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. And then I began to speak. State your name for the record, Robert said gently. Margaret Elizabeth Sullivan Thompson. My voice was clear, stronger than I'd expected. 76 years old, resident of Portland, Oregon for 53 years, baker, mother, widow. Mrs. Thompson, tell the court about your marriage to Daniel. I looked at Judge Morrison. Not at Kevin. Not at the gallery. Just at this woman who would decide my fate. I met Daniel in 1969 at Portland Community College. We were both taking a business class, neither of us belonged there. I was working part-time at a bakery on Hawthorne, coming to class with flour in my hair. Daniel was a line cook at a diner, smelling like coffee and bacon grease. We sat next to each other because we were both too embarrassed to sit near the real students in their clean clothes. A small smile crossed Judge Morrison's face. We married 6 months later. 1972. August 15th. We had $73 between us, no family money, just dreams and calloused hands. Daniel said, Maggie, I want to make bread that people remember. The kind that makes them feel home. My voice caught. Emma passed me a tissue. I took a breath. We saved for 9 years. Lived in a studio apartment with a hot plate and a broken heater. Daniel worked 3 jobs, I worked 2. We put every spare dollar into a mason jar labeled bakery. In 1979, we had enough for a down payment on the building at Alberta and 28th. We opened Rose Hill Bakery on March 3rd. I was pregnant with Kevin. Tell the court about raising Kevin. He was born June 21st, 1979, 7 pounds 3 ounces, black hair like Daniel's. Daniel cried when he held him, told our son, You're going to help us build something beautiful. I looked at Kevin now. He stared at the table. Kevin grew up in that bakery. Did his homework at the front counter, fell asleep in the office during evening baking. On his 5th birthday, Daniel made him a tiny baker's apron. Kevin wore it every day for a year. He told everyone, I'm a baker like my daddy. My throat tightened. I thought he loved it. The smell of rising dough, the warmth of the ovens, the customers who watched him grow up. But Friday, in this courtroom, Kevin said he was embarrassed by us. That we never amounted to anything, that the bakery was a prison. How did that make you feel? Like I'd been stabbed, but also freed, because I'd been making excuses for him for years, telling myself he was just busy, just stressed, just trying to build his own life. But the truth is, Kevin stopped loving us long ago. I just refused to see it. Robert pulled out documents. Mrs. Thompson, let's talk about money. How much did you and Daniel give Kevin over the years? $475,312.68. I have the receipts. My voice was steady, factual. Law school tuition, $90,000. First house down payment, $65,000. Mercedes, $60,000. Range Rover, $75,000. His law firm expansion, $35,000. Ashley's failed jewelry business, $40,000. Tax problems, $45,000. Multiple emergency loans, the rest. Did Kevin repay any of it? Not $1. Every loan came with promises. I'll pay you back when the case settles. This is just temporary. You're investing in my future. The future never came. How did this affect your retirement? We had planned to travel. Daniel wanted to see Ireland, where his grandfather came from. I wanted to take Emma to culinary school in France. Instead, we worked until Daniel was too sick to stand. He died still waking at 4 a.m., still trying to make enough to cover what Kevin had taken. Judge Morrison was writing rapidly. Mrs. Thompson, let's talk about Daniel's final months. What happened? Kevin started visiting more, said he wanted to help with paperwork. Daniel was grateful, thought our son was finally stepping up, but Kevin wasn't helping. He was measuring the bakery for developers, photographing property deeds, planning our destruction while Daniel was dying. How do you know this? Daniel found out. July 15th, 2024. He discovered emails on the bakery computer Kevin had used. Plans to sell Rose Hill. Contracts with Morrison Development Group. A timeline for acquisition post-estate settlement. I pulled out Daniel's letters, all 12 of them. Daniel wrote me letters, one each month, documenting everything Kevin did, every suspicious conversation, every cruel calculation, because he knew he was dying, and he knew I'd need proof. My hands shook holding them. In June, Daniel wrote, Kevin heard the 6-month prognosis. Within 2 hours, he'd called a developer. I heard him say, my father has 6 months. My mother won't be a problem, she's old. She'll be easy to manipulate. The courtroom was dead silent. Daniel died September 12th, 2025. His funeral was September 22nd. Kevin didn't come. Why not? He said he had an important client meeting. I believed him. I wanted to believe him, but there was no meeting. Kevin and Ashley went to Canard Restaurant, drank champagne, posted on Instagram about self-care while I buried my husband alone. How did that make you feel, Mrs. Thompson? The question broke something open. Tears streamed down my face, but I kept talking. Like I was invisible. Like 53 years of loving my son meant nothing. I stood in that cemetery, Your Honor, and I waited. I kept thinking, maybe he's just late. Maybe there's traffic. Maybe he'll come. My voice cracked, but he never came, and neither did Ashley. And they didn't even tell Emma that her grandfather died, so she couldn't come either. That funeral destroyed me. Not Daniel's death, I'd been preparing for that, but Kevin's absence. That killed something I didn't know could die. Hope. The hope that my son still had a heart. Robert let the words settle. What happened after the funeral? I found Daniel's letters, the evidence of Kevin's planning. I called our lawyer, Robert Martinez, changed my will, gave everything to Emma, the only person who loved us for who we were, not what we had. Did you tell Kevin? He found out from the lawyer, came to my house enraged, screamed that I was incompetent, that I was being manipulated, that he'd have me declared mentally unfit. Your Honor, my son threatened to lock me in a care facility so he could steal everything Daniel and I built. Are you mentally incompetent, Mrs. Thompson? No, I'm traumatized. I've lost 8 pounds from stress. I've had panic attacks. I forgot my granddaughter's name once when I was having a cardiac episode, but my mind is clear. I know exactly what Kevin did. I know exactly what I'm fighting for. And what are you fighting for? I looked around the courtroom, at Emma, crying, at Tom and Maria, at Father O'Brien, at Rebecca Morrison and the other families Kevin had victimized. Justice, not just for me, for every elderly person whose children see them as ATMs, for every parent who gave everything and got betrayal in return, for Daniel, who died knowing his son was plotting against us. I turned to Judge Morrison. Your Honor, I don't want conservatorship over my life. I want autonomy. I want dignity. I want Kevin to face consequences for what he's done, not just to me, but to 9 other families he defrauded. I want to prove that being old and grieving doesn't make you incompetent. It makes you human. No further questions, Your Honor. Robert sat down. I braced myself. Marcus Chen approached like a predator circling wounded prey. Mrs. Thompson, you claim to remember financial details going back 23 years, but you forgot your granddaughter's name. How do we know you're remembering accurately? Because I kept receipts, bank records, every transaction documented. My long-term memory is intact. The name forgetting was a one-time event during a panic attack, not a pattern. You've had multiple panic attacks. Doesn't that suggest mental instability? It suggests I'm being abused. Abuse causes panic attacks. That's not incompetency. That's survival. You collapsed twice, once at the bakery, once at home. Those sound like medical emergencies to me. They were. Stress-induced cardiac events. But stress doesn't equal dementia. My brain is fine. My heart is breaking. There's a difference. Chen pulled out photos. These are pictures from your husband's funeral. You look disheveled, confused, lost. I looked at the photos, saw myself tear-stained, hollow-eyed, destroyed by grief. Yes, Mr. Chen, I look like a woman who just buried her husband of 53 years alone. If I'd looked composed and put together, that would be concerning. Grief is supposed to look like this. But Kevin says you've been declining for 2 years. Kevin is lying. Ask my doctors. Ask Father O'Brien, who I've been organizing food banks with. Ask Mrs. Chen from Book Club, where we discuss complex literature. Ask Tom Brennan, who I've been planning bakery renovations with. I'm not declining, I'm being targeted. You changed your will very quickly after your husband died. Some might say. Impulsively? Some might say I just discovered my son had been planning to rob me for 3 years. That's not impulsive, that's protective. You're giving $5 million to a 21-year-old. Isn't that irresponsible? I'm giving my legacy to someone who loves it. Emma worked at Rose Hill every summer since she was 15. She's in culinary school specifically to run that bakery. She's the only one who sees Rose Hill as more than property value. Chen tried for another 30 minutes. Tried to confuse me about dates, about medication schedules, about financial details. I didn't waver. Every answer was clear, factual, unshakable. Finally, he gave up. No further questions. I stepped down from the witness stand, legs trembling but holding. Emma helped me back to my seat. You did it, she whispered. Grandma, you were perfect. Robert called his final witnesses. Walter and Dorothy, Kevin's godparents, who testified about Kevin's explosive rage in court. Dr. Huang summarizing her cognitive evaluations. Tom Brennan describing my competent management of bakery affairs. By 4 p.m., all testimony was complete. Judge Morrison removed her glasses. I've heard enough. Closing arguments tomorrow at 9 a.m., then I'll rule. Court adjourned. We filed out into the hallway. Kevin tried to approach me, but security stopped him, the restraining order still in effect. Mom, please, he called out. I'm sorry. For everything. Can we just talk? I looked at him. This man who'd spray-painted threats on my house, who'd stolen from 9 families, who'd missed his father's funeral to drink champagne. No, Kevin, I said clearly. We're done talking. Tomorrow we let the judge decide. And then we're done. Forever. His face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered Daniel's letters. The funeral I'd stood at alone. The 45 years Kevin thought never amounted to anything. And I walked away without looking back. Tomorrow, this would end. One way or another, it would finally be over. Tuesday morning, the day Judge Morrison would decide whether I kept my freedom or lost everything to my son. I didn't sleep. Again. But this time, Emma didn't find me crying at 4 a.m. She found me baking. If this moment truly hit home for you, don't forget to tap that like button. It tells me you're right here with me. Can you see a bit of yourself in this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what part spoke to you most. Daniel's kitchen, Daniel's recipe, 45-year-old sourdough starter that had survived everything moves, power outages, near disasters, and now this. I kneaded dough with hands that remembered 53 years of this exact motion, feeling Daniel in every fold, every turn. Grandma? Emma stood in the doorway, watching. What are you doing? Making bread. If I lose today, if Kevin wins and they take me away, I want to remember this feeling. My hands in dough, creating something from nothing. Proof that I amounted to something. Emma joined me, her hands alongside mine in the dough. You're not losing. The evidence is overwhelming. Evidence doesn't always win. Sometimes judges err on the side of caution. Better safe than sorry. They'll think, what's the harm in temporary conservatorship? Let Kevin manage things while we sort this out. Protect the poor, confused old woman. You're not confused. I know that. You know that. But does Judge Morrison? The bread rose while we dressed. I chose the same navy dress armor that had carried me through yesterday. Daniel's ring on my thumb. Battle gear disguised as Sunday clothes. At 8 a.m., Robert arrived with devastating news. Margaret, Kevin filed an emergency motion last night. He's asking Judge Morrison to order immediate psychiatric evaluation, 72-hour hold before she rules. Claims your testimony yesterday showed concerning emotional instability and paranoid ideation. My stomach dropped. Can he do that? He can ask. Whether the judge grants it. Robert's expression was grim. Morrison denied the same request before. But that was before she heard you testify. If she saw anything yesterday that concerned her, I was perfect yesterday. I answered every question clearly. You cried, Margaret, multiple times. You showed emotion. Kevin's lawyer is arguing that's evidence of instability. Crying about my husband's death is normal. We know that. But we're not the judge. Robert gripped my shoulders. Listen to me. If Morrison orders evaluation, we fight it. We appeal. But Margaret, you need to prepare for the possibility that this doesn't end today. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. After everything, the testimony, the evidence, the truth laid bare, Kevin might still win by making my humanity look like madness. Emma was on her phone, pacing. Twitter's exploding. TikTok too. Everyone's posting about the case. There are protests forming outside the courthouse, people supporting you. Protests? Elder rights groups. Abuse survivors. They're calling Kevin the face of elder exploitation. Grandma, you've become a symbol. People are watching. We drove to the courthouse through crowds. Hundreds of people lined the sidewalk holding signs. Margaret Thompson is all of our mothers. Crying isn't incompetence, it's humanity. Kevin, thief, liar, disgrace. We stand with Maggie. Police had set up barricades, news cameras everywhere. My private nightmare had become public spectacle. Inside courtroom 507, the tension was suffocating. Kevin sat at his table looking like a cornered animal, desperate, dangerous. His lawyer, Marcus Chen, shuffled papers nervously. On my side, Emma, Robert, Dr. Huang, Tom, Maria, Mrs. Chen, Father O'Brien, Sarah, Rebecca Morrison, and representatives from all 9 families Kevin had defrauded. My army of truth. At Nina, Emmon Sharp, Judge Morrison entered. All rise. We stood. My legs shook. Emma's hand found mine. Regarding Mr. Thompson's emergency motion filed at 11:47 p.m. last night, Judge Morrison began, her voice cutting, requesting immediate psychiatric hold for Margaret Thompson. My heart stopped. Motion denied. Mr. Chen, your client's continued attempts to use emergency motions to delay proceedings or paint the respondent as unstable are noted. One more frivolous filing and I'll sanction him for abuse of process. Relief flooded through me so fast I nearly collapsed. Emma caught me. Now, Judge Morrison continued, closing arguments. Mr. Chen, you first. Marcus Chen stood, but his confidence from yesterday was gone. Your Honor, my client Kevin Thompson is a son who loves his mother. Everything he's done, every decision, every action has been motivated by concern for her welfare. Margaret Thompson is 76 years old. She's recently widowed. She's lost significant weight. She's had cardiac episodes. She admits to forgetting things, to panic attacks, to emotional instability. These are concerning symptoms that warrant protective intervention. Yes, there are emails about property values. Kevin is a real estate attorney. Researching property is his job. Yes, there's a document logging concerning behaviors. That's what children are supposed to do when they suspect dementia. Document for doctors. Yes, he missed his father's funeral. He made a mistake. He regrets it deeply. Chen's voice grew pleading. But, Your Honor, does one mistake, one terrible decision made while grieving justify completely cutting off a son? Giving $5 million to an inexperienced 21-year-old? These are not the actions of someone thinking clearly. Margaret Thompson needs help. Not condemnation of her son, not public vilification, help. Temporary conservatorship would provide professional oversight, ensure she receives proper care, and protect assets until her competency can be definitively established. That's all Kevin is asking for. The chance to protect his mother. Chen sat down. It was a decent performance. If you didn't know the truth. Mr. Martinez, Judge Morrison said. Robert stood slowly, deliberately, walked to the center of the courtroom and placed a thick folder on the podium. Your Honor, Marcus Chen just told you a story about a concerned son. I'm going to tell you what the evidence actually shows. He opened the folder. Kevin Thompson's planning to defraud his mother began in March 2023, 2.5 years ago, not 6 months ago, not after his father died. While Daniel Thompson was healthy and working, Kevin was already contacting developers about selling property he didn't own. The document Mr. Chen claims was logging concerning behaviors includes notes like, she was right about the medication. I was wrong but can frame this as her being confused. That's not documentation. That's premeditation of fraud. Kevin Thompson paid Dr. Richardson $25,000 to sign a letter claiming Margaret is incompetent despite never evaluating her. That's not concern, that's bribery. Robert's voice grew stronger. Kevin Thompson has defrauded 9 elderly families of over $3 million. This isn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This is a pattern, a career, a predatory system targeting the most vulnerable. And the funeral, Your Honor. Mr. Chen says it was one mistake. But Kevin didn't just miss the funeral, he went to an expensive restaurant, drank champagne, posted on social media about self-care while his mother stood alone at her husband's grave. That's not a mistake, that's cruelty. Robert picked up Daniel's letters. Daniel Thompson knew. Before he died, he documented everything. He wrote, "Maggie, protect yourself. Give everything to Emma. Kevin stopped being our son years ago. Your Honor, this case isn't about whether Margaret Thompson is competent. She clearly is. Every medical expert confirms it. This case is about whether our legal system will protect elders from their own children's greed or whether we'll let predators use conservatorship as a weapon." Robert looked directly at Judge Morrison. "Margaret Thompson doesn't need protection from herself. She needs protection from Kevin. And she's asking this court to provide it." He sat down. The silence was absolute. Judge Morrison removed her glasses, rubbed her eyes. "I'm going to rule from the bench. I've heard 3 days of testimony, reviewed hundreds of pages of evidence, and the facts are clear. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. Kevin Thompson is not a concerned son. He's a calculating predator who targeted his own mother for financial gain. The evidence of his 3-year conspiracy to defraud Margaret Thompson is overwhelming and disturbing." Kevin's face went white. "The document logging incompetency evidence shows premeditation. The emails with developers show intent. The payments to Dr. Richardson show fraud. The testimony from 9 other families shows pattern. And Kevin's own outburst in this courtroom showed his true feelings: contempt for his parents and entitlement to their assets." Judge Morrison's voice hardened. "Margaret Thompson is not incompetent. She's traumatized. There's a profound difference. Her weight loss, her panic attacks, her emotional responses, these are appropriate reactions to sustained psychological abuse by her son. They are not symptoms of dementia. I find that Margaret Thompson has full mental capacity to manage her affairs. She does not require conservatorship of any kind. Kevin Thompson's petition is denied in its entirety." The courtroom erupted. Emma sobbed, clutching me. Tom and Maria cheered. Father O'Brien whispered prayers. But Judge Morrison wasn't finished. "Furthermore, based on evidence presented in this case, I'm referring Kevin Thompson to the Multnomah County District Attorney for criminal investigation. The evidence suggests elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. I'm also referring this matter to the Oregon State Bar for immediate disciplinary proceedings." Kevin stood, his face purple with rage. "You can't do this. She's my mother, that's my inheritance." "Sit down, Mr. Thompson." Judge Morrison's gavel cracked like gunfire. "You have no inheritance. Your mother's assets are hers to distribute as she sees fit. And Mr. Thompson, based on your behavior in my courtroom, I'm extending the restraining order indefinitely. You are not to contact Margaret Thompson or Emma Thompson in any way. You are not to go near Rose Hill Bakery. Violation will result in immediate arrest." "This is bullshit," Kevin roared. "She turned everyone against me. She's a manipulative." "Bailiff, remove Mr. Thompson from my courtroom." 2 officers grabbed Kevin. He struggled, still screaming. "You're going to regret this. All of you. That bakery is mine. The money is mine. I'm her son." They dragged him out, his voice echoing down the hallway. Marcus Chen gathered his papers in humiliated silence and fled. Judge Morrison looked at me, her expression softening. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm sorry for what you've endured. No parent should face this, but you've done something important here. You've shown that being elderly doesn't mean being powerless, that victims can fight back, that truth matters." She banged her gavel one final time. "This case is closed. Mrs. Thompson, you're free to go home." Free. The word echoed in my mind. Free. I stood on shaking legs. Emma held me upright. Around us, my community erupted in celebration, hugging, crying, cheering. Robert shook my hand. then pulled me into a hug. "You won, Margaret. Complete and total victory." Dr. Huang checked my pulse racing but strong. "You survived, Margaret. Your body held on." Tom and Maria lifted me, actually lifted me in celebration. Father O'Brien blessed me with tears streaming down his face. Outside the courthouse, the crowd had grown to over 1,000. When we emerged, they erupted in cheers. News cameras surrounded us, reporters shouting questions. But I could barely hear them, because across the plaza, held back by police, Kevin stood screaming, "She stole my life. That bakery was supposed to be mine. She's a thief." I looked at him, my son, my baby, now a stranger consumed by greed, and felt nothing. Not hatred, not love, not even pity. Just peace. The war was over. And I had won. The reporters mobbed us on the courthouse steps. Microphones thrust in my face, cameras blinding, questions overlapping into chaos. "Mrs. Thompson, how does it feel to win? Will you press criminal charges against your son? What's next for Rose Hill Bakery?" Robert stepped forward, shielding me. "Mrs. Thompson will make a brief statement. Then she needs rest. She's been through hell." The crowd quieted. 1,000 faces looked at me expectantly. I'd become something I never wanted to be, a symbol. An 80-pound grandmother who'd defeated her son in court now represented every elderly person fighting back against exploitation. Emma squeezed my hand. "You don't have to say anything, Grandma." But I did. Not for me. For all the others still fighting. "My name is Margaret Thompson," I began, my voice barely audible over the wind. Someone adjusted a microphone. 3 weeks ago, I buried my husband of 53 years alone. My son chose champagne over his father's funeral. Then he tried to have me declared incompetent so he could steal everything we built. The crowd was silent now, straining to hear. "I'm not special. I'm not extraordinary. I'm just a 76-year-old baker who refused to disappear quietly. And I'm here to tell every elderly parent being exploited by their children. Fight back. Document everything. Find witnesses. Get lawyers. Don't let them erase you." My voice grew stronger. Kevin thought being old made me weak. He was wrong. Being old made me tired of his lies. And today, the truth won. The crowd erupted in applause. But I wasn't finished. To the 9 families Kevin defrauded: Rebecca Morrison, the Chens, Frank Delgado, all of you, we won for you too. The district attorney is building a criminal case. Kevin will face justice for what he did to all of us. More cheers. I felt Emma's arm around my waist, holding me upright. And to my granddaughter Emma, who gave up her education to fight beside me, my voice cracked. "You saved me, not just legally. You saved my will to live. Rose Hill Bakery is yours now. Make your grandfather proud." I couldn't say more. The emotion overwhelmed me. Robert guided me through the crowd to his car, security helping clear a path. Behind us, I heard Kevin screaming, "This isn't over. I'll appeal. His voice cut off. I didn't look back. We drove through Portland in surreal silence, past Powell's Books where Mrs. Chen and I spent Saturday afternoons, past the farmer's market where Daniel bought butter every week, past Alberta Street where Rose Hill Bakery waited, dark and closed for 6 weeks but not dead. Not yet. "Where to?" Robert asked. "Your house? Hospital? Emma's apartment?" "The bakery," I said. "I need to see it." Robert parked in front of Rose Hill. The hand-painted sign Daniel commissioned in 1979 hung slightly crooked. We'd never fixed it because Daniel said imperfection is character. Tom Brennan was waiting on the steps, holding a key. "Figured you'd come here, Mrs. T. I've been keeping it clean. Everything's ready whenever you are." We walked inside together, me, Emma, Robert, Tom, Maria Rodriguez, who'd somehow beaten us there, Mrs. Chen, Father O'Brien. My army of survivors. The bakery smelled stale, absent of the yeast and cinnamon that had defined my adult life. Dust motes floated in afternoon sunlight, streaming through the display windows. The vintage register sat silent. The oven's cold. "It looks dead," I whispered. "It's sleeping," Emma corrected, waiting for us to wake it up. She walked to the kitchen, flipped switches. The lights flickered on fluorescent buzz filling the empty space. She turned the dial on the main oven. It rumbled to life. Decades-old machinery still strong. The starter, I said suddenly. The sourdough starter. Where is it? Tom produced a mason jar from a small refrigerator. Been feeding it twice a day like Mr. Daniel taught me. It's alive, Mrs. T, 45 years old and still rising. I took the jar, held it like it was holy. Because it was. This jar contained living proof that what Daniel and I built could survive anything. War, death, betrayal. It endured. Tomorrow, Emma said, her voice filled with determination. Tomorrow we start baking again. You and me, Grandma. We'll make Grandpa's cinnamon rolls. We'll prove Rose Hill isn't just a building Kevin wanted to sell. It's a legacy. I don't know if I can, I admitted. My hands shake. My body's broken. I'm not the baker I was. Then I'll be your hands, Emma said. You teach, I'll bake. Together we're one baker just like you and Grandpa were. Father O'Brien approached, carrying a small vial. May I bless this space, cleanse it of Kevin's intentions and reclaim it for good? I nodded. He moved through the bakery, sprinkling holy water, murmuring prayers in Latin and English. Bless this oven that feeds the hungry. Bless these hands that knead with love. Bless this business built on honesty. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom. Kevin's voice was broken, desperate. Please just listen. I hung up, blocked the number. It buzzed again immediately. Different number. Margaret, it's Marcus Chen, Kevin's lawyer. He wants to apologize, to make amends. Tell Kevin that amends require accountability. When he turns himself into the district attorney and confesses to defrauding 9 families, we'll talk about amends. Until then, he's dead to me. I hung up. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Robert's phone rang next. He answered, listened, his face darkening. When? Are you certain? Understood. He turned to me. That was Detective Martinez from Portland Police. Kevin was just arrested at PDX Airport. He was trying to board a flight to Mexico with $73,000 in cash and fake documents under the name Kenneth Taylor. The bakery went silent. Flight risk, Robert explained. The DA moved fast. Kevin's being charged with 9 counts of elder fraud, conspiracy, attempted identity theft for the fake passport, and flight to avoid prosecution. He won't make bail. Margaret, he's going to prison. Prison. My son. My baby boy who I'd nursed through colic and carried through nightmares and loved with every cell in my body. I waited for the grief to hit. The mother's instinct to protect her child. Even one who'd destroyed her. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something close to relief. Kevin couldn't hurt anyone else now, couldn't target another vulnerable elder, couldn't charm his way into another family's trust just to steal their life savings. Good, I said quietly. Let him face what he's done. Emma was crying. Not for Kevin, for me. Grandma, are you okay? I will be, I said. Not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually, I'll be okay. We stayed in the bakery until sunset, planning. Emma sketched menu ideas. Tom calculated staffing needs. Maria called former customers, spreading word that Rose Hill would reopen. Mrs. Chen organized a grand reopening party. At 7 p.m., exhaustion hit me like a freight train. My body, which had been running on adrenaline and righteous fury for 3 weeks, finally admitted defeat. Home, Robert said firmly. Now, before you collapse again. Emma drove me back to the yellow Victorian house, the one Kevin had spray-painted, now freshly painted by neighborhood volunteers. Inside, the answering machine blinked. 40. 3 messages. Don't, Emma said, blocking the machine. Tomorrow, tonight you rest. She made me soup I couldn't taste, tea that smelled like chamomile and hope, drew a bath with lavender salts that Maria had dropped off, tucked me into bed like I'd once tucked her in, reading from a cookbook instead of fairy tales. Sourdough, she read softly. The word comes from sour meaning fermented and dough meaning, well, dough. The oldest known sourdough starter is over 100 years old, kept alive by continuous feeding and care. Like love, it requires daily attention. Like legacy, it survives beyond its creator. I drifted off to her voice, to Daniel's ring warm on my thumb, to the first peaceful sleep I'd had since he died. I dreamed of bread, mountains of it. Golden loaves filling Rose Hill Bakery, spilling into the streets, feeding Portland. And Daniel stood beside the oven, flour on his nose, smiling. "You did good, Maggie. You protected what we built. Now rest. Tomorrow you rise." I woke at 4 a.m. Baker's hours. Muscle memory. The rhythm that had defined 45 years. But this time, I didn't get up. This time, I let myself rest until 7 a.m., until sunlight filled the bedroom, until my body said now instead of forcing it at 4. Emma found me awake, sitting by the window. "Grandma, how do you feel?" "Different," I said, lighter, like something that's been sitting on my chest for 30 years finally lifted. "Kevin?" "Kevin." The obligation to keep loving him despite everything. The guilt for seeing who he really was. It's gone, Emma. He freed me by showing everyone his true face. I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to make excuses. I can just grieve who he could have been and move on. Emma sat beside me. "The media's calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother who finally stopped being a victim." "That's the same thing, Grandma." "Maybe it was." My phone rang. "Robert. Margaret, the district attorney wants to meet with you this week. They're building a case against Kevin that could result in 15 to 20 years in prison if convicted. But they need your testimony. And testimony from the other families. Are you prepared for another trial? 15 to 20 years. Kevin would be nearly 70 when released. Would never practice law again. Would lose everything he'd sacrificed his soul to gain." "Yes," I said. "I'll testify, as many times as it takes. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every elderly person who'd ever been told you're too old to understand your own finances. Every parent who'd given everything and gotten betrayal. Every grandchild like Emma, who watched their elders diminished and erased. Kevin had made me a symbol. Now I'd use that symbol to burn down his empire of lies. One more thing," Robert added. "The Oregon State Bar formally disbarred Kevin this morning. He can never practice law again. Kevin's entire identity gone. The prestigious career he'd valued more than his parents, destroyed by his own greed." "Thank you for telling me," I said. I hung up and looked at Emma. "Want to make bread?" She grinned. "Always." We drove to Rose Hill Bakery together, arriving at 8 a.m., to find 23 people waiting outside, former customers, neighbors, strangers who'd followed the case. "Mrs. Thompson, when do you reopen?" "Can we help?" "What do you need?" I looked at their eager faces and felt Daniel's presence settle over me. "We reopen in 2 weeks," I heard myself say. "November 30th. And yes, we need help. We need bakers, servers, people willing to learn. Because Rose Hill Bakery isn't just mine anymore. It belongs to Portland, to everyone who believes love and hard work matter." The crowd cheered. Emma and I walked inside, tied on aprons, and began to bake. The starter bubbled, alive and ready. The ovens warmed, filling the space with heat. My hands, 76 years old, scarred, shaking, found the dough and remembered. This was what Kevin could never understand. This was what I amounted to. Not millions in a bank account. Not property to liquidate. But this, flour and water and time and care, transformed into something that fed people's bodies and souls. We baked until sunset, 20 loaves of sourdough, 30 cinnamon rolls, proof that Rose Hill Bakery wasn't dead. It was just beginning again. The 2 weeks before reopening blurred into a frenzy of flour dust and hope. Emma and I arrived at Rose Hill every morning at 6, a compromise between my lifelong 4 a.m. habit and her body's reasonable protest. We'd bake test batches, adjusting Daniel's recipes that I knew by heart but Emma needed written down. "Grandma, how much salt?" "A pinch." That's not a measurement. It is when you've made 10,000 loaves. Your fingers know. But Emma couldn't rely on finger knowledge yet, so we measured everything, creating recipe cards in her neat culinary school handwriting, converting Daniel's handful of this and enough of that into actual cups and grams. Tom Brennan joined us on day 3, his baker's hands remembering the rhythms Daniel had taught him 15 years ago. Maria Rodriguez came back as floor manager, already planning staff schedules and supply orders. 2 former customers' college students who'd grown up eating our cinnamon rolls applied as part-time servers. "Mrs. Thompson," one said shyly, "I'm Zoe. You probably don't remember me, but when I was 8, my family was homeless for 6 months. My mom would bring me here every Friday. You'd give us day-old bread for free. Told my mom bread from yesterday still feeds today. That bread kept us alive. I did remember. A young mother, eyes hollow with desperation, little girl with tangled hair. I'd given them bread and pretended it was charity for me, helps me not waste inventory so they could keep their dignity. I remember, I said, pulling Zoe into a hug. Welcome back. How's your mother? She has an apartment now, 2 jobs. She cried when she saw you won the case. Said you're her hero. I wasn't anyone's hero, but I was learning that sometimes surviving is heroism enough. The media attention didn't fade. Every day brought interview requests, documentary producers, even a book agent who wanted to tell my inspiring story. No, I told them all, I'm not inspiring. I'm angry. I fought because I had no choice. Don't make trauma into inspiration porn. But I did agree to one interview with Jessica Park from KATU News, the reporter who'd covered the trial fairly. She came to Rose Hill on day 7, camera crew in tow, and asked gentle questions while Emma and I kneaded dough. Mrs. Thompson, what would you say to other elderly parents being exploited by their children? I looked directly at the camera. Document everything. Every suspicious conversation. Every dollar given. Keep receipts. Tell someone, a friend, a neighbor, a priest. Don't suffer in silence because he's my son or she's my daughter. Your children lost the right to unconditional protection when they started treating you like a resource instead of a human being. Do you still love Kevin? The question gutted me, my hands stilled in the dough. I love the boy he was, the child with flour on his nose who promised to help us build something beautiful. But that boy died years ago, and I didn't notice. The man wearing his face? I don't know him, don't love him, mostly just pity him for throwing away something real to chase something hollow. The interview aired that night. Within hours, my phone exploded with messages from elderly parents across the country, hundreds of them, all saying the same thing. Thank you. I thought I was alone. On day 10, Robert called with an update. Kevin's attorney is negotiating a plea deal. If Kevin pleads guilty to all 9 counts of elder fraud, conspiracy, and attempted flight, the DA will recommend 15 years instead of 20. Kevin has 48 hours to decide. Will he take it? He'd be stupid not to. Going to trial means facing you, Emma, Ashley, and 9 other families on the witness stand. The jury would crucify him. But Kevin's never been good at accepting consequences. Kevin rejected the plea deal. His new lawyer, his 4th since the conservatorship case, released a statement. Mr. Thompson maintains his innocence. This prosecution is a vindictive witch hunt orchestrated by a bitter mother who refuses to accept her own cognitive decline. We look forward to our day in court. Emma read the statement aloud at the bakery, then crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. He's delusional. No, I said quietly. He's desperate. He's lost everything, his career, his wife, his freedom. His identity was successful attorney Kevin Thompson. Without that, he's nothing. So he's clinging to the lie that everyone else is wrong, and he's the victim. Do you feel sorry for him? I thought about it while shaping a cinnamon roll, my hands moving through the familiar spiral pattern Daniel had perfected over 4 decades. No, I feel sorry for the boy he could have been. But the man he chose to become? He earned every consequence coming to him. On day 12, Ashley called. I almost didn't answer blocked number, but something made me pick up. Margaret, it's Ashley. Please don't hang up. I didn't. Curious what she wanted. I saw the interview. You were kind to me. Kinder than I deserved. I just wanted to say thank you. And I'm sorry. For everything. Are you testifying at the criminal trial? Yes. The DA has me on the witness list. Kevin's lawyer tried to claim spousal privilege, but since I'm divorcing him and witnessed crimes, it doesn't apply. I'm going to tell them everything. Good. Silence. Then, Margaret, can I ask you something? How did you stay married to Daniel for 53 years? What's the secret? The question surprised me. There's no secret. We chose each other every day. Even on days we didn't like each other much. We chose partnership over ego, us over me. Why? Because I realized I never chose Kevin. I chose his potential income, his status, the lifestyle he promised. I never loved him. I loved what he could give me, and when that disappeared, so did my marriage. If this scene touched your heart, tap, like to let me know it resonated with you. Do you see a glimpse of your own story in theirs? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Ashley, that's probably the most honest thing you've ever said to me. I'm trying to be better. I got a job, retail, minimum wage, nothing glamorous. I'm living with my sister, starting over at 43. It's humbling. Humbling is good. Means you're finally learning. After we hung up, Emma asked, "Do you forgive her?" "I don't know yet. Ask me in 5 years. If she's still working retail, still trying to be better, still showing up to testify against Kevin, then maybe." On day 13, tragedy struck. Mrs. Chen collapsed at our planning meeting. Heart attack. Massive. The paramedics worked on her for 20 minutes in Rose Hill's dining room while we watched helplessly. She died before reaching the hospital. The funeral was 3 days later, right between our reopening and Thanksgiving. The entire book club came. The neighborhood. People whose lives Mrs. Chen had touched with her quiet kindness. I gave the eulogy. Lily Chen stood beside me when my son tried to destroy me. She didn't hesitate, didn't question, just showed up, day after day, offering prayer and presence. She saw me not as a cause or a symbol, but as her friend, and now she's gone, and My voice broke. I don't know how to do this without her. Emma squeezed my hand from the front pew. Tom and Maria wept quietly. Father O'Brien dabbed his eyes. But Lily would tell me to keep going, keep baking, keep fighting, keep showing up. So that's what I'll do. For her, for Daniel, for everyone who believed I was worth saving. We buried her on November 27th, 3 days before Rose Hill's grand reopening. I wanted to postpone. Emma wouldn't let me. Grandma, Mrs. Chen, helped plan this reopening. She picked the menu items, organized the invitations. If we postpone because she died, we're saying her work didn't matter. Honor her by finishing what she started. Emma was right. Mrs. Chen would have wanted the bakery open, wanted life continuing, wanted proof that love survives death. On November 29th, the night before reopening, I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety this time, from anticipation. I walked through Rose Hill at 2 a.m., touching surfaces Daniel had installed, ovens he'd maintained, the register he'd insisted on keeping even when newer models came out, because this one has character. The ghosts weren't scary anymore, they were comforting. I felt Daniel in every corner, Mrs. Chen in every book club chair. The 45 years of customers who'd eaten our bread, celebrated birthdays here, proposed to girlfriends over our cinnamon rolls, brought their children and grandchildren through generations. Rose Hill wasn't just a bakery, it was proof that small dreams built with love matter. At 4 a.m. Emma found me. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "Too excited." "Is that silly, being excited at 76? "It's perfect." She hugged me. "Grandma, we're really doing this. Tomorrow Rose Hill Bakery opens again, and this time, it's ours. Truly ours. No Kevin trying to sell it, no Ashley plotting, just us and the bread and Portland." "Are you scared?" "Terrified. What if nobody comes? What if they came during the trial for the drama but don't actually want our bread? What if—" "Emma," I stopped her spiral. "Tomorrow we bake. We open the doors. Whatever happens after that, we face together, just like Daniel and I did for 45 years. That's the secret. Show up, do the work, trust that quality matters." We spent the last hours before dawn preparing. The dough, Daniel's starter, had risen overnight, perfect bubbles, yeasty smell, alive with possibility. We shaped loaves, formed cinnamon rolls, filled the cases with pastries Emma had perfected in culinary school. At 5:30 a.m., Tom arrived with Maria and the new staff. By 6, the ovens were full, the smell of fresh bread wafting into Alberta Street. By 7, a line had formed outside. By 8, the line stretched around the block. By 8:45, 15 minutes before official opening, over 200 people waited in the cold November morning. I stood at the door, looking at them, young and old, every ethnicity. Some held signs. "Welcome back, Rose Hill." Others held photos of themselves as children eating our bread, of parents who'd loved this bakery, of Mrs. Chen. Father O'Brien stood at the front of the line. "Margaret, may I?" He produced holy water, blessed the threshold. "Bless this doorway that welcomes all who hunger. Bless these hands that feed with love. Bless this business built on truth. May it prosper not in wealth alone but in purpose. Amen." Amen, the crowd echoed. I looked at Emma. She nodded. Together, we unlocked the door. Welcome back to Rose Hill Bakery, I said, my voice strong and clear. Thank you for waiting for us. Let's feed Portland. The crowd surged in, not rushed or grabbing, but reverent. Like they understood they weren't just buying bread, they were participating in resurrection. The first customer was Zoe, the little girl whose family I'd fed during their homelessness, now a college student. "One cinnamon roll," she said, smiling. "For my mom. It's her birthday. She couldn't come because of work, but she told me to tell you. The bread from yesterday still feeds today." I wrapped the cinnamon roll carefully, added 3 more. "Tell your mother happy birthday, and thank her for remembering us." She never forgot, Mrs. Thompson. Neither did I. The day blurred into beautiful chaos. We sold out by 2 p.m., had to turn people away promising we'd bake more tomorrow. Made $1,200 modest by restaurant standards, extraordinary for a first day. When we finally closed at 3, Emma and I collapsed into chairs, flour-dusted and exhausted. "We did it," she whispered. "Grandma, we actually did it." I looked around Rose Hill, at the empty display cases that would be full again tomorrow, at the satisfied customers' faces still visible through the windows, at Emma's proud smile. "No," I corrected gently. "We're doing it. This is just the beginning." Because Rose Hill Bakery wasn't finished yet. It was rising, like the starter Daniel had fed for 45 years, like my heart after Daniel's death, like justice after Kevin's lies. Rising, always rising. And tomorrow, we'd bake again. December arrived with Portland rain and a summons. "Margaret Elizabeth Thompson, Arhel, you are hereby required to appear as a witness for the state of Oregon versus Kevin Michael Thompson. Criminal trial begins December 10th, 9 a.m., Multnomah County Circuit Court. 3 weeks after Rose Hill's triumphant reopening, 3 weeks of $400 days and lines around the block. 3 weeks of healing, slow, painful, but real. And now I had to face Kevin again. "You don't have to testify," Robert said over coffee at the bakery. "The DA has enough evidence. Ashley's testimony alone could convict him." But your testimony is the most powerful. You're the victim everyone saw on the news, the mother he tried to destroy. The jury needs to see you strong, coherent, completely competent. It demolishes his defense that you're demented and vindictive. I looked around Rose Hill, every table full at 9 a.m. Zoe serving customers with confidence, Tom pulling fresh sourdough from the oven. Emma at the register, laughing with a regular who came daily for cinnamon rolls. This was what I'd built, what Kevin had tried to steal. "I'll testify," I said. "How long?" "The trial could last 2 weeks. The DA is prosecuting all 9 counts of elder fraud. 9 separate victims. 9 families Kevin destroyed. You'll testify about your case specifically, probably 2 days on the stand. 2 days of reliving the worst weeks of my life. 2 days of Kevin's lawyer trying to make me look crazy. 2 days of courtroom cameras broadcasting my pain to Portland. When do I need to be there?" "Opening statements are the 10th. You'd testify probably the 12th or 13th. "Margaret." Robert's voice softened. "The preliminary hearing last week didn't go well for Kevin. The judge denied bail reduction, cited flight risk. Kevin's been in county jail for 3 weeks now. He looks broken." "Good." The word came out harsher than I intended. Emma glanced over from the register, worried. But I meant it. Kevin had broken me systematically for years. Let him experience a fraction of that destruction. The night before opening statements, I couldn't sleep. Again. But this time, anxiety wasn't keeping me awake, it was rage. Pure, clean, righteous rage. I'd spent 3 weeks being strong, being the inspiration, the survivor who smiled for cameras and told other victims to stay strong. I'd performed recovery so convincingly I'd almost believed it myself. But underneath, I was furious. Furious that Kevin existed, that I'd wasted decades loving him, that my last conversation with Daniel before he died included, "I'm worried about Kevin, he seems distant." Distant, such a polite word for planning our destruction. At 3 a.m., I went to the bakery, unlocked the door, flipped on lights, and started kneading dough with violence Daniel would have scolded me for. "Gentle, Maggie. The dough feels your emotions. Angry hands make tough bread." But I wanted tough bread, wanted something that could withstand pressure, heat, time, something that didn't collapse under cruelty. Grandma? Emma stood in the doorway, backlit by streetlights, looking so much like Daniel it hurt. You should be sleeping, I said, not stopping the aggressive kneading. So should you. She came inside, locked the door behind her. Talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. You're destroying that dough. Something's wrong. My hands stilled. The dough beneath them was overworked, tough, ruined. Just like Kevin had tried to ruin me. I'm so angry, I whispered. Emma, I'm so incredibly angry at him. At myself for not seeing it sooner. At Daniel for dying and leaving me to fight this alone. At the universe for making me a mother to a monster. Then be angry. Stop performing recovery for everyone else. I can't. Tomorrow, I walk into that courtroom representing every elderly parent being exploited. I can't be angry. I have to be dignified. Strong. Inspiring. The word tasted bitter. Emma took the ruined dough from my hands, tossed it, started fresh with new flour, new water, new starter. You can be both, she said, kneading with the gentleness I'd taught her, angry and strong, hurt and inspiring, broken and still standing. Grandma, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. What if real isn't enough? What if the jury sees me angry and thinks Kevin's right that I'm vindictive, unstable, using the legal system to punish him? Then they're idiots, and will appeal, and will keep fighting until Kevin faces every consequence he's earned. She shaped the dough into a round, placed it in a banneton basket to rise. This bread won't be ready until tomorrow afternoon. Just like you, you're still rising, Grandma. Still becoming whatever comes after survival. Don't rush it. December 10th arrived cold and bright. I wore the navy dress, again my armor, Daniel's ring on my thumb, Emma beside me, Robert carrying a briefcase that weighed more than I did. The courthouse steps were mobbed with protesters. Not for me this time against Kevin. Signs reading, "Elder abusers deserve prison, Kevin Thompson, shame, protect our parents." And counter-protesters, maybe 20 people holding signs, "Innocent until proven guilty, false accusations destroy lives." Kevin still had supporters, people who believed his lie that he was the victim. Inside, courtroom 507, the same courtroom where I'd won conservatorship, felt different. Bigger, more official. This wasn't family court anymore. This was criminal prosecution. The jury box sat empty, waiting for 12 strangers who'd decide Kevin's fate. The prosecution table held 3 lawyers from the district attorney's office, led by Sarah Patel, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and sharper suits. Kevin sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. My son, my baby, shackled like a criminal because he was a criminal. He'd lost 30 pounds. His face was gaunt, unshaven, hollow-eyed. 3 weeks in county jail had stripped away the polished lawyer veneer, revealing the desperate man underneath. Our eyes met. He flinched first. Judge Richard Bradley presided, not Judge Morrison, a man in his 60s, former prosecutor, reputation for being tough but fair. All rise. We stood. The jury filed in 7 women, 5 men, ages ranging from 20s to 70s. I searched their faces for sympathy, for understanding, for any hint of how they'd see me. They looked curious, reserved, neutral. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Judge Bradley began, "you've been selected to hear the case of Oregon versus Kevin Michael Thompson. Mr. Thompson stands accused of 9 counts of elder financial abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and flight to avoid prosecution. You will hear testimony from multiple victims, review extensive evidence, and ultimately decide, is the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt?" The jury nodded, solemn with the weight of their responsibility. "Miss Patel," opening statement. Sarah Patel stood, walked to face the jury with commanding presence. "Kevin Thompson is a serial predator who targeted the most vulnerable members of our society, elderly parents and clients who trusted him. Over the course of 4 years, he systematically defrauded 9 families of over $3 million. But this isn't just about money. It's about a lawyer who weaponized his education, his charm, and his access to steal not just wealth, but dignity, security, and peace." She clicked a remote. A screen lit up with Kevin's photo professional headshot, suit and tie, confident smile. This is the Kevin Thompson his victims met: successful attorney, devoted son, trustworthy professional. But this another click. Kevin's mugshot. Hollow-eyed, desperate, caught. This is who he really is. March 2023. First contact with Morrison Development. July 2024. Daniel's cancer diagnosis and Kevin's acceleration of plans. September 2024. Daniel's death and Kevin's coordinated assault on my competency. Kevin Thompson didn't just steal from his mother. He tried to erase her, have her declared incompetent, lock her in a care facility, take everything she and her late husband built over 45 years. Patel's voice grew harder. And Margaret Thompson isn't his only victim. You'll hear from Rebecca Morrison, whose mother lost her grandchildren's college fund, from the Chens who lost their home, from Frank Delgado whose son's education fund vanished. 9 families, 9 systematic thefts, all following the same pattern: gain trust, manipulate documents, steal assets, settle complaints quietly. She paused, letting it sink in. Kevin Thompson is a predator, and this trial will prove it beyond any doubt. Kevin's lawyer, a public defender named James Walsh, overwhelmed and underpaid, stood for his opening. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just heard a compelling story. But that's all it is, a story. The prosecution wants you to believe Kevin Thompson is a monster who cold-bloodedly defrauded his own mother. But what if the truth is more complicated? Walsh gestured to Kevin, still shackled, looking pathetic. Kevin Thompson watched his mother decline for 2 years, watched her forget things, become confused, make irrational decisions. He did what any concerned son would do: documented her symptoms, sought help from professionals, tried to protect her assets. Yes, he researched the bakery's value. He's a real estate attorney, that's his job. Yes, he missed his father's funeral. He's admitted that was a terrible mistake made while grieving. Yes, he attempted to leave the country because he was scared, overwhelmed, facing false accusations that destroyed his life. Walsh's voice grew pleading. Kevin Thompson isn't a predator. He's a son who made mistakes while trying to help his mother. The prosecution will show you emails and texts taken out of context. They'll parade victims who blame Kevin for their own poor financial decisions. They'll paint a picture of a monster. But I ask you, look at the man sitting here. Does he look like a monster? Or does he look like someone who's already been destroyed by accusations he'll prove are false? The opening statements ended. Judge Bradley called first recess. In the hallway, Sarah Patel found me. Mrs. Thompson, you'll testify day after tomorrow, December 12th. Are you ready? No, but I'll do it anyway. Good, because Walsh is going to try everything to discredit you. He'll claim you're vindictive, confused, manipulated by Emma and Robert. He'll suggest your trauma responses are dementia. He'll make you relive the worst moments of your life and then imply you're remembering them wrong. My hands started shaking. Emma gripped one, steadying me. Can you handle that? Patel asked, not unkindly. I thought about Daniel's letters, about the funeral I'd stood at alone, about 45 years of bread baking at 4 a.m., while Kevin slept in his expensive house, resenting us. Yes, I said, I can handle it. Because I'd already survived the worst thing possible, discovering my son wanted me erased. A courtroom cross-examination was nothing compared to that. The next 2 days, I sat in the gallery watching other victims testify. Rebecca Morrison, crying as she described her mother's Alzheimer's and Kevin's exploitation. The Chens, speaking through a translator about losing their home. Frank Delgado, voice-breaking as he explained his son's stolen education fund. Each story was the same: trust, manipulation, theft, Kevin settling to avoid criminal charges. Until I'd fought back with evidence too overwhelming to settle. On December 11th, the night before my testimony, Emma and I didn't go to the bakery. Instead, we stayed home, made Daniel's cinnamon rolls together in our kitchen, and talked. Are you scared? She asked. Terrified. But not of testifying. I'm scared of seeing Kevin up close again, scared I'll feel something. Pity, love, the instinct to protect him. Would that be so bad? Yes. Because Kevin doesn't deserve protection. He deserves consequences, and if I soften, if I show mercy, the jury might too. Emma shaped dough in silence then. Grandma, you can love who he was and still condemn who he is. Those aren't contradictory. aren't they? No. You loved a child who doesn't exist anymore. Mourning that child doesn't mean excusing the man. At midnight, I lay in bed and whispered to Daniel, "Tomorrow, I testify. Tomorrow, I tell 12 strangers how our son tried to destroy me. Give me strength." The wind rattled the windows, or maybe it was Daniel answering. At 4 a.m., I got up and baked. By 8 a.m., I was dressed in my Navy armor. By 8:30, I was walking into courtroom 507. At 9 a.m., Sarah Patel called my name. The state calls Margaret Elizabeth Thompson. I stood, walked to the witness stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth about my son. The whole truth, no matter how much it destroyed us both. "Mrs. Thompson," Sarah Patel began, her voice gentle but firm, "tell the jury what Kevin did to you." I looked at the 12 faces watching me, then at Kevin, slumped in his orange jumpsuit, refusing to meet my eyes. "He tried to erase me," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Not just steal from me, erase me, make me disappear so completely that even I would question my own existence." The courtroom was silent. "Tell us about the funeral," Patel prompted. The memory crashed over me, standing alone at Mount Calvary Cemetery, waiting for a son who never came. My hands gripped the witness stand rail. September 22nd. Daniel, my husband of 53 years, was buried. I stood there for 2 hours. The priest, Father O'Brien, kept glancing at the empty chairs, at me, asking without words, "Where is your family?" I had no answer. Because my family was drinking champagne at Canard Restaurant, posting about self-care on Instagram, while I watched dirt cover the man who gave Kevin everything. A juror, a woman in her 60s, wiped her eyes. "Mrs. Thompson, why do you think Kevin did this?" I thought carefully. This answer mattered. Because somewhere along the way, Kevin stopped seeing us as people and started seeing us as obstacles between him and $5 million. The knowledge that your parents love you becomes dangerous when you no longer love them back. That's the lesson Kevin taught me, that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, character does. "Objection!" James Walsh jumped up. "Speculation about my client's motives." "Overruled," Judge Bradley said. "The witness is describing her perception. Continue, Mrs. Thompson." I took a breath. Kevin kept a document on his computer, called it his incompetency evidence log. In it, he twisted every normal behavior into symptoms of dementia. When I was right about something, he noted how to frame it as confusion. When I cried at dinner at a restaurant where Daniel and I celebrated our 40th anniversary, Kevin wrote, "Inappropriate emotional response." He manufactured my incompetence because the truth that I was sharp, capable, and onto his scheme didn't serve his purpose. How did that make you feel? The question broke something. Tears streamed down my face, but I kept talking. Like I was being murdered slowly, not physically, psychologically. Kevin was killing the person I'd been for 76 years and replacing her with a confused, helpless woman who needed to be protected from herself. That's not love. That's obliteration. "Mrs. Thompson, you gave Kevin $475,000 over 23 years. Why?" "Because that's what mothers do. We give. We sacrifice. We believe that our children's success is our success. I worked 18-hour days well into my 70s so Kevin could have law school, cars, houses, bailouts. Every time he said, 'I'll pay you back,' I believed him. That belief, that faith in my son, is what Kevin exploited most effectively." I looked directly at the jury. The education I got from this experience is that love without boundaries is just enabling. I taught Kevin that he could take and never face consequences. I'm as responsible for creating him as he is for becoming what he became. Several jurors nodded, understanding. Patel showed the jury emails, text messages, Daniel's letters. Each piece of evidence was a nail in Kevin's coffin. But the most devastating moment came when she played the recording Tom Brennan had made Kevin, threatening to have me put in memory care by Christmas. The jury's faces hardened. This wasn't a he said, she said anymore. This was documented, recorded proof of premeditated fraud. After 2 hours, Patel finished. "Your witness, Mr. Walsh." Kevin's lawyer approached like a man walking to his own execution. "Mrs. Thompson, you claim to have given Kevin $475,000. But isn't it true you're confused about the amounts? That you're inflating numbers?" "No. I have bank records, canceled checks, Every transaction documented. Would you like to see them again? Walsh tried different angles. Tried to make my grief look like instability, my trauma look like dementia, my clarity look like vindictiveness. I didn't waver. Finally, frustrated, Walsh asked, "Mrs. Thompson, do you hate your son?" The courtroom held its breath. I looked at Kevin, really looked at him, saw the 5-year-old with flour on his nose, the 12-year-old helping Daniel fish, the teenager who'd once told me, "You're the best mom in the world." "No," I said quietly. "I hate what he became. I hate what he did. But the boy I loved, I'll mourn him for the rest of my life. That's the real tragedy." Mr. Walsh. Kevin didn't just steal money, he stole the son I thought I had, and that loss is something no jury verdict can restore. Several jurors were openly crying now. "No further questions," Walsh said, defeated. I stepped down from the witness stand. Emma hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You were perfect, Grandma. Perfect." But I didn't feel perfect. I felt hollowed out, emptied. The trial continued for 6 more days. Expert testimony, financial forensics, Ashley's devastating account of Kevin's planning, Rebecca Morrison describing her mother's stolen college funds. On December 18th, closing arguments. Sarah Patel was surgical. Kevin Thompson is guilty. The evidence proves it beyond any doubt. Your verdict should reflect that. James Walsh was desperate. Kevin made mistakes, but mistakes aren't crimes. Show mercy. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the foreman, a man in his 50s, stood. On count 1, elder financial abuse of Margaret Thompson, we find the defendant guilty. Kevin's face crumpled. On count 2, elder financial abuse of Rebecca Morrison's mother, guilty. Emma squeezed my hand. On counts 3 through 9, guilty. On conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. On attempted identity theft, guilty. On flight to avoid prosecution, guilty. Guilty on all counts. Maximum sentence, 25 years. Kevin stood, shaking. "No, this is wrong. Mom, please, tell them you forgive me. Tell them." "Mr. Thompson, sit down." Judge Bradley's gavel crashed. But Kevin broke. Completely broke. He turned to me, tears streaming, and screamed words that would haunt me forever. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I was wrong about everything. Dad was right, you did amount to something. You amounted to everything, and I was too stupid and greedy to see it. Please, Mom, please don't let them take me away. I'll spend my life making this right. I'll work at the bakery. I'll be the son you deserved. Just please, please give me one more chance." The courtroom was silent except for Kevin's sobbing. Judge Bradley looked at me. "Mrs. Thompson, do you wish to make a victim impact statement before sentencing?" I stood on shaking legs, walked to face Kevin across the courtroom. "You want one more chance?" My voice was quiet, but every word carried. "I gave you $475,000 worth of chances. I gave you 53 years of love. I gave you a childhood in a bakery you now realize was beautiful. You squandered every chance, Kevin, and now you're asking for another?" "Yes. Please, Mom, I'll—" "No." The word was final, absolute. "I forgive you, Kevin. I truly do. Because hatred poisons the hater more than the hated. But forgiveness doesn't mean restoration. You earned these consequences. Now you'll serve them." I turned to Judge Bradley. "Your Honor, I request maximum sentence. Not because I'm vindictive, because Kevin is dangerous, because he'll do this again if given opportunity. Because 9 families deserve justice, and mercy to him means injustice to them." Judge Bradley nodded. "Kevin Michael Thompson, you are hereby sentenced to 25 years in Oregon State Penitentiary with possibility of parole after 15 years. You will also pay restitution to all 9 victims in the total amount of $3.2 million. "No!" Kevin's scream was animalistic. "Mom, please." But I was already walking away. Emma beside me. Robert, Tom, Maria, Father O'Brien, my army of survivors. Outside the courthouse, reporters mobbed us. But I was ready now. "The lesson from this case is simple," I said to the cameras. "Love your parents while they're alive. Value the knowledge they've accumulated over lifetimes of experience. Respect the education that comes from years of hard work and sacrifice, because one day they'll be gone. And you'll realize that the inheritance that mattered wasn't money, it was time, stories, recipes, values, things you can't steal, things you can only receive through love. A reporter asked, "Do you think Kevin will ever change?" "I hope so. I pray so. But I'm no longer responsible for saving him. He has to save himself now. And maybe 25 years will teach him what 76 years of my life couldn't. That people matter more than property. That legacy measured in love always outlasts legacy measured in dollars." 3 years later, Rose Hill Bakery thrived. Emma graduated culinary school with honors. We expanded to include community cooking classes, teaching knowledge about bread, about patience, about how flour and water and time create magic. I received letters from across the country, hundreds of them. Elderly parents who'd seen my story and found courage to set boundaries. Adult children who'd recognized themselves in Kevin and chose differently. Families learning the hard lesson that love requires honesty, not just obligation. Kevin wrote me from prison. Once a month. Every letter saying I'm sorry. I understand now. Can we talk? I never responded, but I kept every letter. Because someday, maybe in 15 years, when he's eligible for parole, we might have a conversation, not about forgiveness, about education. About the knowledge that family is earned, not inherited. About the lesson that redemption is possible but not guaranteed. Emma and I stood in Rose Hill one morning, 3 years and 2 months after the trial. The bakery was full, customers laughing, bread rising, life continuing. "Grandma, do you ever regret it, fighting Kevin, testifying?" I thought about it while shaping a cinnamon roll, the same spiral Daniel perfected 45 years ago. No. Because I learned that self-respect matters more than peace, that boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary. That the greatest gift you can give your children isn't money, it's the education to be decent humans, the knowledge that character matters more than wealth. The lesson that hurting others to get ahead leaves you alone at the finish line. Emma smiled. That's pretty philosophical for a baker. Bakers have time to think. 4 a.m. to 3 p.m., 45 years. That's a lot of knowledge accumulated between rising dough and cooling loaves. That night, I received a call from Sarah Patel. "Margaret, Kevin's up for a parole review in 12 years. The board will likely contact you. What will you say?" "I'll tell the truth, that he's my son, that I hope prison gave him the education in humanity that freedom never did, that he should be released if and only if he's proven he's learned the lesson that people aren't resources to exploit. And if he hasn't learned, then he stays locked up, not as punishment, as protection for everyone else, to you. Watching this, if you've made it this far in our story, thank you. Thank you for listening, for witnessing, for caring about an elderly baker from Portland who refused to disappear. This channel, Voices of Auntie Rose, exists to share stories like mine, stories of survival, of boundaries, of choosing yourself when the world demands you sacrifice endlessly. Please subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, because every story we share is education for someone who needs it. Every comment you leave is encouragement for someone still fighting. Every share reaches someone who feels alone in their struggle. Tell me in the comments, have you experienced anything like this? Have you had to set boundaries with family? How did you find the courage? I want to hear from your heart, your real, honest, vulnerable truth. Because that's where wisdom lives, in shared experience, in collective knowledge, in the lesson we teach each other through storytelling. What do you think about Kevin's sentence? Too harsh? Too lenient? Should I have responded to his prison letters? Should forgiveness include restoration? These aren't easy questions, but they're important ones, and your perspective matters. Like this video if it moved you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in fighting family exploitation. Use it as education for others who don't understand elder abuse. Make it part of the knowledge we pass forward about protecting our most vulnerable. And most importantly, take care of yourselves. Set boundaries. Document everything. Trust your instincts. You're not being paranoid or vindictive when you protect yourself. You're being wise. That's the ultimate lesson. Self-preservation isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. To everyone watching this, I wish you good health. I wish you peaceful days filled with people who value you. I wish you the knowledge that you matter. I wish you the education that boundaries are love. I wish you the lesson that surviving is victory enough. Take care of your hearts, protect your peace, honor your worth. Until next time, this is Margaret from Rose Hill Bakery, signing off. Goodbye, dear friends. See you in the next video.